You're listening to ThunderQuack Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Force Perspectives for the 6th episode of Skeleton Crew Zero Friends Again. I am your host, Michael Cohen, and joining me, as always, stop motion crab monster, Joe Hogan.
Oh, dude, more than my next breath, I need a little trash crab guy as my pet. I love them.
Dude, what an episode. What a great episode. What just feels and rad stop motion crab monsters and great speeches and just all the best stuff. And the end of the episode is just like, come on, man. I already thought that the Onyx Cinder was a cool ship, and then it was like, oh, here's an upgrade. And Listen, we love an upgrade. Joe and I are anime fans. We love a third act, like, oh, here, like all of us, like Goku going Super Saiyan, right? Like
the cool glow up.
Yeah, there is nothing better in storytelling than than the upgrade. There's the only thing better than an upgrade is a surprise upgrade, which this one, I kind of clocked it. I as the thing was starting to crunch into the hull, I was like, oh, they need to use the button, and it's gonna blow off all the armor plating, because the previously on made note of the button. They reminded you of the button, and then the other thing is that of all of the things that Tack Renaud said in the hologram recording, there was a thing about going to AT-AT and with the ship like clad in armor or something like that. It's like bristling with armor or something like that. Like that he had put armor plating on the ship in order to go to the planet. And I was like, wait a second, that's important. That's important. So it was like the thing starts crunching into it, and I was instantly like, oh, they're gonna have to blow the hull, and it's what we know as the Onyx Cinder is not actually the Onyx Cinder. It's really funny because it actually reminds me a lot of Reboot in season 3, when they have to go into the web, and the web, as opposed to the net, is a very dangerous place, and the only way that they can travel through the web without becoming degraded is by covering it in the skins of web creatures. And so they take this big ship that they've been sailing on or whatever, right? And they cover it in these things, and it's like this gross, Geiger-esque pirate ship sort of thing. And it's rad as hell. But then by the end of it, it all kind of gets ripped off, and I was like, this is the same thing. That's exactly the same thing. Everything relates back to Star Wars, right? Like every time I talk about anything, it always relates back to Star Wars,
and Reboot, apparently.
But Star Wars, it can always relate back to Reboot. Yeah, man, was so awesome. And the moment when it start, they blow the hull, and then it starts to pull out, and it was like, oh, it's shiny underneath, it's pristine underneath, and it and then it the full reveal of it, and it was like, oh, that's way better, that's way cool, that's a rad ship design, it's so good. It's such a great ship. Oh my god. I was actually like literally at the Lego store yesterday looking at the Onyx Cinder Lego set. I was like, I don't know. Maybe I'll get this. Maybe I just because it's the only opportunity to get the characters, right? In the minifigs. And I was like, I really, really, really want this Neil minifig. I really want it so bad. But $180 Canadian for you know, a 3 centimeter tall little blue elephant guy is probably not a good financial decision, but that's never stopped me before.
This ship can't do that, right?
No,
Like there's not like a
no,
little ship inside of the Onyx.
no, and
Yeah,
that was
okay.
one of the things
Yeah.
where I was like, thank God they didn't blow this. Like, thank God they didn't
Yeah.
that Lego set didn't blow this reveal, because that would have been so disappointing. Yeah, if we knew that this was coming, because it's gonna like in the next episode, it's gonna be fantastic when they all get to At-Atten at the same time, and it's like what is that? Like who's on that ship? And then Fern comes over the comm or whatever it is like says something snappy. Yeah, no, it's great. We're kind of going backwards because we're starting at the ending first, but the way that this episode is structured is so beautiful. It's so perfect because they've kind of been through the roughest part of their adventure so far, and the result is that they all break apart, right, as a group.
Ugh.
They swap partners, right, because they've broken up in the past, but it's always like Wim and Neil go off and then Fern and KB go off. But this time they swap that, and so we get the dynamic of these other characters together, which is fantastic, just to like flesh out this crew. But it means that when they come back together as like an actual crew, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the actual, like now, like this is oh my god, it's so good. It's so Joseph. It's so good because the ship like shedding the armored hull, right, and
It's
revealing that it's a rebirth, right,
it's
and it's
literally the Phoenix, right? Coming from the ashes, the
yeah,
molten
exactly,
ashes.
and it's not just like the ship is actually a oh my god, it's a metaphor for the kids and them going from being these kids that didn't know each other to these kids that are stuck together to the skeleton crew, right? Because in the moments before that, they're like it's like KB gets on the ship, like they all get on the ship and KB's like, okay, I think I know this, and she starts doing it, and then it's like, okay, this isn't working. I need to give the engine more power. I'm gonna go do that. Neil, you fly, and she takes off, and then Wim is like, I'm gonna go blast it, because he knows how to do that, and so like, and they all kind of like take positions,
Yeah.
and they act as a crew. They act as a single unit, and through that, like the ship is reborn as this other thing, and it's just like, yeah, it's so great. It's such a great moment. Like it's such it's such a rewarding moment, I think, for us as an audience, because like in the last episode, they're kind of at their lowest point, right? I as Jack, Scott, Fern, at knife point, and we don't know necessarily. I mean, we're pretty sure a child is not going to be, murdered on screen for us to all watch. I think that would be rough for Jude Law's career. It's like, oh, you got to be in Star Wars, yeah, but they made me kill a kid on Disney Plus. I don't know. It was a weird choice. So yeah, we kind of knew that wasn't going to happen, but it didn't change the stakes of it, right? Like, so that like the aftermath of that in this episode, I think, was just, it was a really great place to start. And all my predictions about this episode were completely wrong. right? And that was like
Yeah.
was 2 days ago.
Oh, what happened to
Cathalops.
Cathalops?
Yeah,
Hope
yeah,
he's okay,
yeah.
wherever he is.
But I but the great thing, so there are a lot of instances where I'm like making predictions and stuff about episodes. You can go back and listen to other podcasts, right? Like listen to our other recaps where like I'm making predictions and then like that's not what happens, and I get the feedback very often of like, I really wish they'd done it the way that you had predicted, or like the way that, you know, like your concept or whatever of that. And I always appreciate when people say that. But this is one of those instances where it's like, I got no problems here. I got no problems here. Acolyte was the same, right? Because Acolyte, we were making a lot of predictions, and I think a lot of stuff went the way that we were sort of tracking, because that show was really good about setting things up, right? Like it was very organic the way that the story unfolded. So there was a lot of stuff where we were like, oh, I think this is going to happen. I think this is going to happen. And then eventually over the course of the season, those things did come true. But in the places where we were wrong, it was also like, you know what? I think this is probably better anyways, right? Like I'm not unhappy. Like this is also a good outcome. And with this one, it's like, yep, nope, I didn't see 90% of this coming, right? I am totally happy with that. I am totally happy with that, because what we got in this episode was just fantastic stuff. You liked it as well, right?
This episode is probably my favorite episode of the series so far, and I've been loving the series. Really, I think you and I are kind of on the same page. Where like episode 4 was just the weakest so far, or at least like the least engaging, and just kind of like a little tonal whiplash. But I mean, this episode crushed it. Yeah, like the metaphor, to get back to it real quick, with the ship at the end rising, like the galaxy was literally trying to eat these children up, like starting in the second episode, right? Like gobbling them up, and it took them coming together to fight back, to escape it, and not just escape it, but to thrive and flourish. Like, oh, chef's kiss. So good. So good.
Yeah.
Trash crabs. Oh my god. Oh my god. And I mean, I already told you this last night. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried last night because anytime best friends come back together, like best friends have a fight and then they figure it out, and then they come back and they both like come back vulnerable and willing to admit their faults, even though the other person might have hurt them in some way, whether or not it was like a valid reason to. When both of them are able to say, hey, I messed up, I'm really sorry, I take accountability, let's be best friends again, every time that demolishes me. And I love these characters, man. Fern and KB are awesome, and I was very relieved to see the two of them back together. Women Neil they weren't like mad at each other or anything, so
No.
whatever.
Yeah,
but still,
that was a little bit of a different, a little bit of a different thing. Yeah, there was a lot of conflict between Fern and KB. But women, yeah, that was just like, well, we're gonna go this way, and I think like, Neil didn't really give an explanation. I found but my read on it was that he was like, I'm not gonna let her go by herself. Right, like that he kind of he was like, okay, well, if you're going with KB, then I'm gonna go with Fern, because he's like, Neil is just he's just kind and thoughtful, and he just like cares about people, so he's just like, I'll go this way then, I guess, so that she's not like going off on her own and singled out. But yeah, so it's such a great episode, because not only do we get all of that stuff, but we also get just a great moment. We get Brutus is so good in this one.
Yeah,
the performance from that the animatronic mask in this one, like they really put in the extra effort that I think he's been good in all of his appearances, but like because this is the first one where we need to kind of understand his emotion a little bit more. They put just a little bit more time into it, a little bit more effort, rather than him just like, pun intended, barking orders at people. This one was a little bit more. There was a little bit more subtlety in the sort of just the way that he was sort of delivering lines and that sort of thing. Um, but Jude Law, given the hungry speech, it was great, because it was like, yeah, like he's I love how like it starts quiet, right? Like he starts kind of like, I'm hungry, but then he like builds it up, and it's like the the chatter in the background is the best part, because it's the one guy's like, what's he on about? When he starts, it's like, what's he saying? I can't hear him. It's so good. I thought it was such a fantastic moment for that character, because there is an important metaphor there. There's a very important metaphor there for why these guys are pirates, and how that relates into uh, the struggle of sort of, the everyman in a capitalist society, under the heel of, you know CEO billionaire man babies, and all of that, because that whole sentiment of like, I've been hungry my whole life, like we fight for scraps, like we work so hard, and the most we'll ever get is what's left over from these other people, right? And it's like, it's really interesting having him make that speech right after we've had this episode where they go to this spa in Lanupa, and we see another example like Canto Bight of the excess of the galaxy, and how the super wealthy get to just sort of like do what they want. And I really like that it wasn't heavy handed in the last episode. There was no like, Rose standing on the balcony going like, I'd like to put my fist through this whole town, which is like, I do like that stuff in The Last Jedi, because I like, because Star Wars has license to go to that place where it can be very like melodramatic, and it can be very like you know heightened in that way, right? Because like, if it can't do that in The Last Jedi, then Jabba can't be like, I'm gonna feed you to my dragon, and then when you kill his dragon, he's like, okay, fine, then I'm gonna feed you to the fucking monster in the middle of the desert, like, and I'm gonna make you stand on this, like, we're gonna make you walk the plank, right, in a big ceremony. Like, that is just as melodramatic and arch, and like Luke standing there and being like, Jabba, I'm gonna give you one last chance, free us or die. It's like, come on. And then he does the little thing, and then the thing pops out, and he does the flip, and then we're off to the races, right? Like, that's as over the top as Star Wars gets, I think. Like, in my opinion, I don't know that there's a moment in Star Wars more like grandiose and like obnoxiously heroic, like Errol Flynn Robin Hood swinging around. I mean, like, they literally Errol Flynn Robin Hood swing around in the battle on Mustafar. But like I just, whenever I think of like how silly Star Wars, like original trilogy Star Wars, gets, when I hear people like complaining about something in the prequels or the sequel trilogy or in any of these Disney Plus shows, I think about Jabba's palace. I think about that entire opening, that entire first half hour of Return of the Jedi, which is just completely off the wall, right? Like, it's just so ridiculous, and the archetypes are so arch, right? Like, Jabba is just, like, he's a disgusting slug man that wants to like eat actual people, and yeah, like last week, we didn't talk about it in last week's episode. There was a hut, and he did apparently eat one of the attendants.
Yeah, this is like
and the guy goes like, it's like, oh no, not again.
no.
No, not again. And it's like, wait, what? I don't even I don't even want to think about the implications of what that means, but it's awful. It's terrible. But that's like they could have done that. Like they could have really like hammered that home in the last episode. They didn't. And so then in this episode, when they do two things, right? Because Jack has that speech to the pirates where we sort of understand it's very much like a Pirates of the Caribbean, like the pirates aren't the bad guys, by the way. Just a heads up that yes, they're ruthless. Yes, they will murder people. Yes, they steal and they pillage and they plunder and they do all of these bad things. They are victims of circumstance, right? Like it's a speech like that is a way of endearing us to the life of piracy, right? Which the Pirates of the Caribbean movies did really really well, and just making us go like, okay, like there's a like Jack Sparrow's not a bad guy, even though he will do bad guy things, right? And when you have these characters like these pirates or like Boba Fett, or like we have lots of like uh fringe outsider unlikely hero characters in Star Wars, right? Hondo's another one who's a pirate, but then ends up becoming, integral in Star Wars Rebels in saving the day, right? Like, I, you have to do this. You have to do this thing where you go okay, these guys are pirates because the galaxy has kind of like pushed them into a world where this is the only recourse that they think they have, right? um they're like they are fighting their own war in their own way. Like it's not that different from the Rebel Alliance. Their rules of engagement are different, right? Like the rebels take prisoners. The rebels don't want to murder people. They want well, depending on which faction of the rebels we're
Yeah,
talking
which
about, right?
rebels
Because
you mean?
Saw Gerrera's was absolutely like, I don't care about civilian casualties, blow it up. But like our core rebel alliance, the Mon Mothma,
Mm.
Akbar, Leia side of things is like, you know, but yeah, like it kind of, you kind of start to just paint these guys as a little bit more sympathetic, right? Because he makes the point with one of them, with the Quarren, of like, you just want like your what is he, like kelp fields or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he says, but he's like you just want to be a farmer.
Yeah.
You just like the galaxy is just, it's an awful place, and you can't do that because somebody else owns everything. So like so you're a pirate, and you're just trying to save up enough money to buy a farm. Like, what that does is it puts us on the side of the pirates and against the side of authority, right? And if you couple that with the Mandalorian and the every time that we go to Coruscant in the Mandalorian, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, these guys are the bad guys. These guys are the bad guys. The billionaires are the bad guys. These are the actual enemies. I Because they're the ones who create the system that forces people to turn to piracy, right? So I thought that was really great. And then you not even juxtapose that, you pair it, you couple that with um with the spa just dumping its garbage, not even far away from the spa. Like, this is how little these rich people care, is that they are on this amazing planet at this spa with these incredible vistas, right? Like, because last week's episode, we've painted this place as just this beautiful, unbelievable, majestic place, right? And then in this episode we go, yeah, but they're just taking all of their garbage, and look how much garbage they're producing. Like, look at how much trash this little spa on the top of a mountain is producing in order for these rich people to soak in mud baths,
Hmm.
right? like it, because they're just dumping mountains of garbage, and this native life that appears to be somewhat intelligent, right, is adapting to it by these little hermit crabs using the trash as shells. It got me so much when you see the one that's got the droid foot on its back, like the full lower leg of a droid on its back is the shell. I was like, that is great. Somebody was putting that stuff together, either like the concept artist or one of the modelers or whatever, and they just grabbed an asset and were like, this will be funny. And then somebody else saw it and was like, yes, yes, don't put that guy in the background, put that one in the front. Everybody needs to see that because it's funny. Like, it's a great little, like, yeah, they all have trash on their back, and then this one just has a full-on droid foot. But yeah, but those creatures having to adapt to the like the way that these so-called civilized sentient beings are just like dumping garbage in their own backyard. Like, they're just destroying the nature and the pristine environment of this planet. And it's just like, by the end of the season, I think that thematically that'll be a through line, right? Because the other part of it is that this is all tying back into the fact that Ad-Atten is a mint. They're printing money, right? Um, and it seems like everything is great because they have, abundant resources. Like, it's this closed ecosystem with all this balance, and everybody has everything that they need, but they're really just all subjugated, right? In order to achieve that, none of them have freedom. So it's it that also ties into the pirate thing, right? Because so much of the pirate ideology is about independence. We talked about that on a previous episode, right? That I that was the whole impetus, was like freedom from the monarchy. It was like, no, we're doing all the work here. We're not sending taxes back to the king or the queen. Like what are you gonna do? Like, you're sitting on a throne in England and we're in the Caribbean. Like what are you gonna do, right? And that's why piracy was able to flourish in that environment. So um yeah, like there's a lot. There's so much that's like thematically relevant on all of these different levels, and that's where I look at this show and I go like, yeah, it's a fun adventure. My girls are loving it. They haven't watched this episode yet, because we just watched it last night, and they're at a sleepover at my mom's for New Year's. So like they'll probably watch it like today or tomorrow or whatever. But I'm sure that they're gonna love this episode. I'm sure that they're gonna have a great time with it because it is such a great adventure episode. But then, like, for us, there's also like all these great, larger Star Wars connections. And then on top of that, it is also like it actually, the show actually has something to say. It has a purpose. It has an ideology to it. um it's not just Star Wars pirates for the sake of Star Wars pirates, right? Like the the fact that they're pirates is actually tied into some of the larger themes of the Mandalorian, right? Of this era of Star Wars, where they won the war, and apparently it's peace, right? But is it really? Like, because it doesn't seem like that, right? And there's just that whole concept of like in that time period, as the New Republic is trying to figure out how to be a government and how to recover from the Empire. The people who liked it under the Empire continue to live that lifestyle, and and the lawlessness that flourished under the empire is now unchecked, right? And so is it really better? Like, is the new republic really better than the empire? And yeah, it is, because it's not the empire, right? But there's also kind of the question of like, but is it? Like, because it's got the new republic has a lot of issues, right? And so I think that what's happening there, and I don't think that this is necessarily a conscious thing that's being put into this era of Star Wars, but I think that it is a criticism of, like, oh man, some people are going to disagree with this. But I think that it's like a subconscious criticism of the idea of America, and I lump Canada into this as well, but like the colonialism, the imperialism of of like, oh, we're gonna separate from that evil empire and establish our own thing. And like, yeah, but the thing that you established is just as bad in a lot of respects. Like, you didn't it like, yeah, you wrote a lot of fancy things down on a piece of paper, but in reality it just ends up functioning exactly the same. The same type of people end up in positions of authority, and everybody else ends up paying the price for it, right? So like, really, like what difference does it make? Like, it's a different flag, and that's at the end of the day, for the average person out in the galaxy, that's what that means. Right? um yeah, it is like that through line from Mando of, is it in Mando or is it in Ahsoka? I think it's in Mando. I think it was in season 2 of Mando. Or what was the one? When did we go to Coruscant and we saw the rich people talking about stuff, and they were like, yeah, it really doesn't, like, oh, like, I think that we should do things this way. I think, and it was like, they're all talking like Imperials, like it makes no difference to them. Like the New Republic flag is just a different
Are you talking about
design.
Kaz's dad and everybody, or trying to think of what scene
No,
you're talking about?
no. There's a really specific. Oh, you know what? It might be from Andor. It might not be from Mando. It might be from Andor. I think it is. I'm conflating it. It's because this was like a thing that was one of the through lines between Mando and Andor, was that, like, the transition from the Old Republic. That's what I'm thinking of. It was a transition from the Old Republic to the Empire. I think it's during the dinner party,
Okay, at Mon
at Mon
Mothma's.
Mothma's.
Okay.
Yeah, where like these people are like so disgusting, because like awful things are happening out in the galaxy at the hands of the Empire, right? And like stormtroopers and whatnot. And Mon Mothma is fully aware of all of this because she's working with what will become the Rebel Alliance. And these rich people are like, oh, it's gotten so difficult to get like this type of caviar or something like that, right? Like some like obnoxiously obvious parallel to our world, right? It's like, oh, like these insurgencies, and it's really messing up the supply chain for these luxury goods that we get to enjoy on Coruscant because we're rich people. Yeah, and it was very much like, oh, these are the same corrupt people that they were corrupt during the last days of the Republic, and they're just as corrupt now. Nothing has changed for them, right? Like, under the Empire. So, and since that's the seat of power, since that's where all of the bureaucracy is happening, like, they don't care. You're never going to get these people to join a rebellion because they're fed, right? They're fat and they're lazy and all of that, right? But yeah, it's there is a a through line there into some of the stuff from Mando. Because I'd have to like go through it. There's an episode in season 2 where we see Coruscant, isn't there?
In Mando,
in Mando.
I remember for sure there's one or two in 3. I don't remember going
Yeah,
there in season 2 though.
maybe we didn't go there until season 3, but that episode in season 3 with Dr. Pershing's is
Yes. Yeah.
there's some connective tissue there, right? Because there's
Mm.
because I think that we see some of the same locations almost, or like similar locations. Do we also see that? Do we see the pavilion with the mountain in that? I know we see that in the Clone
Yeah.
Wars. I
Yeah.
think we see that in
Yeah, that
Andor as well, right?
I don't remember seeing it in Andor, but for sure we saw it in Mando season 3 with
Yeah, we
Pershing.
see him because he touches it, right? Or he
Yeah.
goes to touch it, and then the droid
Yeah.
comes up or whatever, and he
Um,
drops his ice cream. Yeah, yeah.
Ahsoka also had some Coruscant stuff too.
Yeah. Ahsoka had Coruscant stuff because of Carson Teva, right, and
Mhm.
Hera.
Mhm.
But yeah, and that was one of the places where like in Ahsoka, there's a lot of correlation there as well, because you've got the senators who are like, what are you talking about? There's no war. The war is over. It's peace, right? But that's where that's where it ties into this stuff in Skeleton Crew, where it's like, but is it like is it peace? Because Carson is going to the New Republic, and he's like, you guys, like, there's stuff going on out here. Something is happening, right? And it's because of like the lawlessness, the pirates, the bounty hunters, everything that's happening with the Mandalorians, and the New Republic ignoring it, that amidst that, the Imperial Remnant is able to gather resources,
Mm.
right? And I think that, like, ultimately what we'll find is that Thrawn's actions will lead to the First Order having everything that it needs to to build its power, right, in the Outer Rim, and you know, and beyond, like on Exegol and stuff, right? So yeah, like, it's all connected in that way. But I like that Skeleton Crew is being subtle about it. It's there, and it's absolutely intentional, because they've made a point of it in multiple episodes. So it's one of those things where you're like clearly they are sort of contributing to this overall narrative, but they're also staying very focused on their own story, which I really like, because Mando has to uh, depart from the main narrative to give us an episode with Dr. Pershing's in order to do that.
Mm.
Ahsoka did it a little bit better, because with Ahsoka it was like but it's because we stayed within the military stuff, right? We stayed with Carson, we stayed with Hera, so we were very much like, we were still in the like um I the war, the battle side of things, and we weren't like taking this weird like political uh, uh sidestep detour in order to get that piece of the story in, which Mando is a very like episodic like adventure of the week sort of format, so I think that works for Mando, but it is very like, oh, okay, so this week's episode is not even going to have the Mandalorian and Grogu in it. Okay, cool, that's fine. Like, Din and Grogu aren't even here. That's but I like, and like Book of Boba Fett doing the same thing, where it's like, all of a sudden we're gonna stop and we're gonna go visit Luke Skywalker with Din, right? Like, it's you're like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing. I guess that's what's happening now. Yeah, like the Mando and Boba, like, those shows just kind of like go wherever they feel like them going, as opposed to Skeleton Crew being like very on point. Like, it's like next week, watch next week, we'll like tune in, and it'll be an episode about, I don't know, pick a random guy. We'll just like, it'll be about Pelimato for some reason. We're like, wait, what? I listen, wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I miss Pelly. Everybody's favorite weird ant. Man, the Mando series is so bananas. It's the greatest. But yeah, like Skeleton Crew has been fairly focused on the narrative with these kids, right?
Mm.
but this episode being like the most, I think, important to their journey so far, with the interpersonal dynamics and everything. It's so good. It's such a good episode, Joe. What else you got? What else you got to talk about with this one? Yep.
Man, I don't know.
Anything you want to say?
I have a question because I don't remember. I mean, this is
Mhm.
obviously just solved by rewatching the episode. Where's the lightsaber right now? Because I remember it getting taken away from him. Who has it right now?
One of the pirates, I think. What's his name? The one that Jaleel White plays.
Oh, okay.
Gunter. Yeah, Urkelbot. Gunter grabbed it. I think. I'd have to like bring up the scene, but when he comes out of the manhole, right, and then they all show up and they capture him, and he calls to 33 and he's like 33 attack, and then 33 pops out and immediately gets ionized. I'm pretty sure it's Gunter. It's one of the pirates comes over and takes it from him, because I remember seeing them holding it. And I was like, that's important. Like,
Okay.
that's like, that'll come back. I imagine it's Gunter, because I'll bet you anything, if you go into the scenes back on that, like the station or whatever, that he's probably got it clipped to him somewhere. I'll bet you anything he does, because it's gonna come back. It's gonna come back into play. Like there's gonna be a moment where, obviously, Jack is gonna take them to Ad-Atten, and they're gonna start this thing. When it starts to go wrong, the rest of the pirates are gonna turn on him again, like they did at the beginning of the series, right? And when that happens, he's gonna like rip it off of whoever's belt or bandolier or whatever that's carrying that lightsaber, and he's gonna use it. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that before this series is out, we see him with that lightsaber. You know what it'll probably be? It'll probably be a moment where like they're about to like kill the kids, right? Where like Brutus is like, blow that ship out of the sky or something like that, and it's like, oh no, like they're, like their shields are down and they're at his mercy or whatever, and Jod Nana Wood's gonna come out of the woodwork, and the Nana woodwork, and he's gonna not be Jack Silvo anymore, and he'll be a Jedi again, and it'll be like a triumphant moment sort of thing. And then they'll be like, I can't believe you're throwing your lot in with these worms, or it writes itself. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, somebody will make some comments about, it's like, are you a pirate? And it's like, I'm a pirate Jedi, and then we're all gonna cheer, because somewhere Hondo's gonna be like just nodding approvingly.
I kind of feel like after that little speech last night, though,
yeah,
I kind of feel like some of those pirates are gonna help Jod. Like, I feel like some of them really are gonna.
Yep.
Like the farmer guy, the lady.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
absolutely.
I feel like it's not just going to be Jod and the kids versus everybody else.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's going to be a bit of like a schism in the pirates, right? And I think we're going to end up with like the good pirates and the bad pirates, right? Like there's going to be Brutus's pirates, and then there'll be Jod's pirates, and it will have like a faction of like heroic pirates that we're cheering for sure. That's gonna happen.
I'm still waiting for that pirate from Mando season 3 to actually do something, because like he keeps showing up, but he's just not doing anything.
Yeah, he pops into frame at one point in this one, and it's like when he's got the credit, right? When he's got the Old Republic credit, Vane like pops in,
there you go,
into frame. And it was very like, it's like, hey, remember that this guy's from Mando.
Yeah.
It was very like, he's here. But I think it was more so that like Vane was there. He's the only one out of all of those pirates that was there when Wim pulled out the credits, right? And like that whole moment. So I think that was the purpose of that, was for him to like pop in, and then he kind of confirms that it's like, oh, like the kids had, like they have more,
Yeah.
because it's the confirmation of the story, right? Like that's the thing where some of them are going to be like, he is telling, like he must be telling the truth. Those weird kids said they were from Ad-Aden. They had Old Republic credits, and now Jack is saying that this planet is where they got like that Ad-Aden is where they got them from, because it's where they're literally printing money,
Mm.
right? And it's like, okay, like this all actually makes sense. Like he's like it would be a crazy story to make up based on the actual things that like some of them saw, right? So I think that like that's sort of Vane's purpose in the story, is to sort of be there to be like that's just like the ones that the kids had, because I think he says something along those lines. But yeah, I think the bigger question right now, more than where the lightsaber is where 33 is, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because they take him off, like when they capture them, we don't see him for the rest of the episode. So
Mm.
we get the little nod to 33 when they see the droid in the pile of trash, and the bug, was that one of the crab things? I think it was a different type of bug, like something comes out of its eye, right? And we have a moment where we're like, is it going to be the little rat guy, or and it's like something else, and you're like,
Mm.
oh, you're kind of like disappointed because it makes you think about 33. And Wim even says like I wonder where he is, sort of thing. um but yeah, I because that'll be important next week as well. It's really funny because like we just recorded our episode for last week's like 2 days ago. It just came out like yesterday. Like I just posted it yesterday morning, and now we're doing this one. So it feels like the two episodes were really close together, even though they were
Yeah.
a week apart. And now it's like, oh man, we got like a whole week to wait.
Ugh.
It's killing me. I don't want it. I want
And
it
then,
now.
meanwhile, 2 weeks from now, that's it.
Yeah, and then we're done. And then we're done. Oh, and then nothing, man. Oh, we don't
What's
even
even
know.
coming after
We
this
don't even
Star
know.
Wars, right? Like Mando and
Visions.
Grogu and right, yeah, okay, Visions.
Vision season 3 is the next thing
And
that we
Andor, I
know
guess,
that
right?
we're getting. Oh, I guess Andor's before that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Andor is in April.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think April 22nd maybe. It's not that far off,
Mhm.
and listen, we do have Star Wars Celebration between now and then, right? So yeah, Celebration Japan's gonna be, there will be lots and lots to talk about in relation to Star Wars once
Mhm.
that happens. But yeah, I don't know what we're gonna get in between, but probably not much of anything. It'll probably be pretty quiet. It'll just be a lot. I think there will be a lot of announcements of guests and stuff like that for
Mm.
Celebration. Once Skeleton Crew is done, I think they'll probably start pushing Japan, like Celebration Japan, as like the thing that StarWars.com is talking about the most. Um, I really hope that with Japan, like that they broadcast some of this stuff again, because I know that with like with Anaheim, they really didn't in what year was that? 2022.
22. Yeah.
And then yeah, like with Europe, not really. And did we get another one in between there in the
No, it
US? No,
was
before that was Chicago.
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah,
Chicago 2020 was a little mini online event thing for a
yeah.
few aspects of it. And then yeah, Anaheim 22 and yes, Europe 23.
Yeah, so I really hope that they go back to what they used to do. The last time that Star Wars Celebration was in Japan, uh, they basically live streamed the whole event,
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
and I think that was one of the last ones that they did that for. But it would be really nice because like Japan's a tough one. Japan's a tough one for everybody to get to. Like I think it's a much harder sell than Celebration Europe, where you've got everybody in all of the European countries that are able to go like, yeah, okay. And like, because I think that for people in Europe traveling to London, or like when they did it in Germany previously, is like, if you're in one of the other countries in the EU, that's no different than traveling from like Seattle to Orlando.
Yeah, people
right?
don't realize how small like all
Yeah.
of Europe is.
Yeah. In fact, like I think like the idea of traveling from Italy to London is actually less daunting than the idea of traveling from Seattle to Orlando, right? Because Seattle to Orlando is like an 8-hour flight,
Yeah.
and you generally, like, because I'm in Vancouver, right, and it's like from Vancouver to Orlando, there are no direct flights. You can't. As far as I've ever been able to find, there's no such thing as a direct flight from Vancouver to Orlando. You're gonna have to switch planes at some point, most likely in Minneapolis. You either go by way of Minneapolis or you go by way of LAX, and you got to switch. And when Crystal and I went in 2012, we had to, on the way there, it was like we switched in Minneapolis and then we switched again in Memphis. It was like, yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot just to get to Orlando. I think that one was like almost 10 hours of travel. Like 8 hours in the air, but then between layovers and stuff like that, almost 10 hours of travel. And losing 3 hours going from Vancouver to Orlando, even worse.
Japan's gonna be tough for the people going there and doing that.
Yeah, you got to give yourself an extra day.
Yep.
That's what everybody who's ever done it has said, is that like you can't, if you think that you're gonna like because like with Anaheim or with Orlando, it's like, you can land the day before the convention and then get up and go to the convention, right? Like, because a 3-hour time difference is pretty easy to overcome. But you're literally losing a whole day, and you're completely like flipping what time of day it is. It's you're in a different part of the world when you go from North America to Japan. So yeah, people need to account for that, though. Like, it's going to take you at least a day to get into a place where you can be a human being. So don't think you're gonna land one day in like on the Thursday and go to the convention on Friday. It's that you'll be in rough shape. You're not gonna have a good time. But that's one of the things with Japan, is that it's like you can't. For us, it's like we can't just go to Star Wars Celebration. If we're going to Japan, we gotta, like, there's a bunch of stuff to do in Japan as well, right? Like that's not a trip we're going to make every other year sort of thing. Whereas like you put a Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim and it's like, we can just go for Star Wars Celebration. We'll do a few days at Disneyland, but like, it's not that big of a deal. We'll be back. Especially for us, because we're on the West Coast, right? And I'd assume like Orlando is probably very similar for you, where it's like, yeah, whatever, man. It's like 3 hours. like who cares?
Yeah.
Like, just,
yeah. It's Disneyland, Disney World rather, is easy for us.
Yeah. Sorry, we're recording really early in the morning. So I've like not I haven't worked it out yet. Usually we're just starting at this point, where I think we're about to wrap up. So sorry for all of my throat clearing as we talk. But I'm trying to think if there was anything else in this episode that I wanted to talk about. I don't think that there is. I mean, I think that's really it.
I got nothing.
The scene with KB and Wim is really great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we kind of talked about it in broader strokes. I like that it put the two of them together and it gave them an opportunity to come together as friends.
Yeah, bond a little bit.
Yeah, because KB has the line that is the titular line for the episode of like, I'll have zero friends again, and Wim's like, well, no, because you'll have me and Neil, and she smiles at that, not because she didn't realize that they think of her as a friend now, right?
Yeah.
We also got a little bit of backstory of how she became augmented.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love I love what they do in this one. Pop her head open in the back, and we get all this great Star Wars sci-fi element of it. But I was just thinking of the biker gang in Book of Boba Fett,
The mods.
the mods, and I was like, this is gonna connect. I guarantee you this is gonna connect. That when everything comes together and we've got like our whole army, right, to fight Thrawn, that like the mods are gonna see KB and KB's gonna see the mods and she's gonna be like, oh, you guys are cool. You guys are awesome, right? And the one dude's gonna do like a little twirl as he like kneels down to like shake her hand or something. And it's gonna be so good, and it'll be like vindication, because like I remember how much people were like, oh, the mods are so dumb, and I'm like, I don't know what you're watching, because I'm watching Star Wars, and these guys are Star Wars characters. If these guys showed up in one of the comic books, you guys would be like, pretty rad. But you put them in Book of Boba Fett, and everybody's like, yeah, this is dumb. And it's like, man, they're Star Wars characters, and they're great Star Wars characters. I love the mods, and we know that like, oh my god, the Marshal, what's his name?
Cobb
Timothy
Vanth.
Oliphant. Sorry,
Cobb Vanth. The Marshal.
Cobb Vanth. Thank you. Jeez Louise. He's one of my favorite characters in this era, and I can never remember.
I don't think he is. Can't remember his name.
I just think of it's because I just think Timothy Oliphant, because he's just such a dreamy guy. He's on the list. But he got messed up in the finale of Book of Boba Fett, and the last that we saw him was in the post credits getting modded up as well, right? So I like the I like that it was a plot point, that we spent some time and we saw just how much this the modifications, as they call them augments, right? Like her cybernetic augments. They're really, it's not all great, because so far it's been like, oh, look at like her superpowers, right? And then in this episode it's like, no, this is actually like holding her back from being able to do a lot of stuff, and she's at like real risk out in the galaxy at the moment. And I think like one of the things there is going to be, at some point, once they hook up with sort of like the what will become the Resistance, right? Like Hera and Mando and like all like that whole group. And I think the mods is that like somebody is gonna say like, hey, we can fix that. Like your corrosion issue is because of blah 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 blah. Because it, like, you have to remember that they're using old tech, right? Like she's there. It's all High Republic technology. Like they Ad-Atten likely hasn't advanced very far, right? Because they've been isolated. So like the mods are going to be like, oh, listen, like we're cruising around on Tatooine. If we had to worry about corrosion, like we wouldn't last a day. Like we can fix that for you. Yeah, so I think that we'll end up getting like some of that connective stuff there. But the idea of like the reason why she is the way that she is because she was in an accident at some point. I thought like there's like a through line, a bit of connectivity there with like Cobb Vanth and Fennec, right? Of them being, injured in fights and then getting augments themselves, right? So yeah, it was cool. It was really cool to see that, but it was also really, really cool to have it be this thing that now connects KB and Wim, and she has my God, you want to talk about like hard hitting emotional moments when she's like, oh, that was close, and he was like close to what, and she's like, oh, good, total system shutdown, like so totally casually, and she goes to walk away, and then she turns and she's like, thanks, Jedi. It was just like, I was just like, yeah. And the performance, from the kid who plays Wim, Ravi Cabot Conyers, is so good in that moment, because the like the pride that
Yeah.
he shows, like sort of like welling up of like, oh, I got to do the thing, like, because that's what he said that he wanted, right? Everybody made fun of him for it. um and then here he is in this moment, and she's like, you saved my life, like you literally just saved my life. And he's like, I don't, like, I was just doing what you told me to do, right? Like, he's just,
Yeah.
but that's the thing, is that, like, he's just a good kid. He's just a good kid. He just wants to help people. He just wants to defend those who can't defend themselves, and help people who need help. And that's a job for security droids. But yeah, no, because Wim is a Jedi. Wim's a Jedi. I said it last week, and then I felt very vindicated this week when she said that. I was like, yes, nailed it, nailed it. There's whether or not he can lift objects with the Force. It's not about lightsabers and moving rocks and adventure and excitement. All right. Okay, Joe. It's
Sure.
not what makes you a Jedi. That's not what makes you a Jedi. It's
Mm,
being selfless,
I
being
don't
a
know. That
hero.
Dark Trooper scene is pretty cool. The Luke Skywalker in the hallway.
Yeah, okay. Have fun being an incel. Jeez. Yeah. Well, did you order your Cybertruck yet? Good
Yeah.
gravy. The Venn diagram of people who want Cybertrucks and people who think that the two best scenes in Star Wars happen in hallways with lightsabers. It's a circle. That's a circle.
We're allowed to drop F-bombs, right?
Yeah.
We went out for Tina's birthday the other night, and we stopped by her friend's house first, and her friend lives in a little bit of a wealthier neighborhood. And like in this like little dead end street, there's a house like where somebody owns a Cybertruck, and Tina looks at you, what a stupid fucking car. Like, that was it. That's all that was said. That's all that needed to be said.
Yeah.
That was it.
Every time we see one, it's like, God damn it. Like, it just makes you angry. You know what I mean? It just makes you angry. Like, it's just the fact that they exist. So I actually posted on Blue Sky the other day. I a post where I was like, oh, like, you're saying, like, don't worry, everything's gonna be all right. Like don't, the world's not such a bad place. Well, Cybertrucks exist, so check and mate. Because the existence of Cybertrucks is just like, it's not just the fact that they're ugly as hell, because they are objectively awful to look at, from any angle. There is not, like, they do not look cool. Just a heads up, if you're one of the people that's like, but they do look no, they don't. They don't, like, compare them to anything else. They are like, they don't look, even like they want to be like a truck version of a DeLorean. They're not nearly as cool as a DeLorean, and a DeLorean is only cool because of Back to the Future, guys. That's the only reason, because it flies. Doc Brown made that thing look cool. He put the vents on the back and the things all over it, and it travels through time, and that's why DeLoreans are cool, not because of actual DeLoreans. And DeLoreans are just like like the Cybertruck wanted to be like the new DeLorean, and it's like, yep, good job, you guys did it. Because DeLoreans were also prone to breakdowns and like very poorly engineered and very thoughtlessly manufactured, and the ones that still exist today are held together with like bubble gum and duct tape, like, and it's a miracle that any of them run. So yeah, like, that's the Cybertruck is just a repeat of that nonsense. But beyond the fact that they are ugly and like objectively painful to the eye, they stand for something much worse. Like if you own a Cybertruck, you are telling the world that you are a certain type of person, and I don't know why anyone would want to communicate that. I just can't imagine why anyone would want to communicate that. But those are the same people that want to buy all of this Darth Vader merch that Lucasfilm is putting out lately. It's the same people. They're the same people. I don't understand why this vocal minority has so much power, other than the fact that the algorithm feeds them, and because the algorithm feeds them, they feed the algorithm, and that ultimately serves the super wealthy, right? Like that's like that is the only thing that I can think, is that there's like this weird, disgusting symbiotic relationship between the 1% and this group of people that just like put all of their energy into feeding the machines that make those people more rich, right? And meanwhile, the rest of us are like, is there some way that I can go on social media to talk to my friends that doesn't benefit these people? Like, can we figure that out? Is there some way that, and the reality is that there is. Right now it's Blue Sky. Like, that's the only social media platform that you can go on that isn't like actively funding somebody awful. But yeah, like we just live in this terrible world where everything that makes our lives more convenient or like, you know, tolerable is benefiting some asshole at the top that could care less if we live or die. And that's how you end up with pirates. That's how you end up with space pirates. If you want to get space pirates, that's how you get space pirates. Because that's kind of it kind of feels like we're almost there, guys. It kind of feels like we're almost there. I don't know if you've been paying attention to the news lately, but people are like, I wonder if like acting like a pirate is the right recourse to solve some of these problems. And you guys can infer from that what you want about recent current events. But it's absolutely where we're at with society. It's and how did I tie a Cybertruck back into Star Wars? Easily, because this show is like, hey guys, the galaxy, this fake made up galaxy, is actually a reflection of our own world, and pay attention. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what the next 2 episodes bring and how this all wraps up. I have full faith that it is building towards something fantastic. And I'm just excited to see more. But I also feel like this might just be the first season. We might get a second season of Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. I think the fact that there hasn't been an onslaught of negativity online, it makes me the most hopeful for any of these shows yet. Although I did see a couple weeks ago rumors that like season 2 of Ahsoka has been canceled, or like
oh, shut up.
It's like, I don't think that that's
shut up.
I don't think that that's the case. I don't think that Dave's gonna let anybody stop him from making season 2 of Ahsoka. But yeah, I don't know. It would be really, really great if Lucasfilm could communicate something to us. If they could just talk, and I mean Lucasfilm, not Disney. I don't want it in a Disney shareholders earnings call. It would be really great if Lucasfilm could come out and tell us what they've got planned, and like actually not just announce things, but like talk about what they're thinking. It would be really cool. It would be really, really cool if they could do that, because I really think that as fans we deserve that, because things have been really tumultuous the last couple of years, and I would appreciate getting a little bit of insight into the decision making processes that have gone into some of these things. But that said, I am also still holding out hope that the Acolyte's not done, that it's just not going to be Acolyte season 2, and that we're going to get continuation of that story. But they're just going to, I think, based on some of the stuff that Lucasfilm has done since August, I think that they're just going to refocus it on Manny Jacinto, and it's going to be a Plagueis series or something like that. But that it will pick up at some point from where Acolyte leaves off, and we'll get a continuation of that story, because there's just too many threads. It's just too important. Like they set up way too much to pay that off somehow.
Yeah.
And they'd be so foolish to not make more stuff with Chimera. So foolish. Like, it's a license to print money. It's one of the coolest characters that they've added to Star Wars. Full stop. Like, just like forever. Like, I don't know. I think the last time that they added a character to Star Wars that was as cool as Chimera was probably Darth Maul. And Darth Maul, like, it took a long time for Darth Maul to pay off, and eventually he did. But like, initially it was like, look how cool this guy is, and that's all there was look how cool this guy is. But with Chimera, it was like, look how cool this guy is. Also, great story. Also, great performance. Like just, yeah, they'd be so stupid to leave that on the table. But it's the same with this show. It's the same with Skeleton Crew. I think that they have something really, really special with this cast. These kids are fantastic.
Yeah.
They're so good, right? To the extent that, like, you're crying watching this episode and I'm getting like tinglies watching Wim, beam it being called a Jedi, right? Like, I just like it's I think it's a really special show. And I think that Jude Law also is, like, I don't know, I can't imagine Star Wars without him now. Like, he's in Star Wars. He's a part of Star Wars. I actually really love that character. And I'm like, despite everything that he did last week and his sort of ne'er-do-well attitude, I'm rooting for him. I want good things. I want good things for Jod Nanowood. I want him to get the healing that he that he deserves. Fix that trauma, and he can become a Jedi again and team up with Hondo, and just like, let's do that. Let's just a good. He's like a pirate Jedi captain and have his own crew of like good guy pirates, and then like Hondo shows up and he's part of that and is like a mentor to him, and it's like, that would be so good. It would make me so happy, Joe. It would make me so happy.
Having Hondo would make a lot of people happy, I think.
It is just, it's wild to me. It's wild to me that they just sit on that dude and they're just like, yep, he's at Galaxy's Edge. It's fine. And it's like, no, it's not fine. Put him in these live action shows, please. Yeah.
I think it's
cool.
a matter of time.
It is. It'll happen, and I'm sure that, because that's after Ahsoka. I think that Hondo is Dave's favorite character to put in things, because obviously Hondo shows up a lot. And it's not it's not a real Star Wars story until Hondo shows up now, right? Like, that's, he's got it. He has to show up. So yeah. Hopefully we'll get him at some point before the end of all this Thrawn stuff in the Mando era, and it'll be great. It'll be fantastic. But right now we're just waiting for the next episode of Skeleton Crew, and yeah, whatever else they have in store for us. I don't know. That would be a way to sell Mando and Grogu. Let me tell you, if they do, because they'll debut a trailer for Mando and Grogu at Celebration. I guarantee it. There will be a teaser trailer. I don't know if it'll go to the public, but somebody will get to see a teaser trailer for Mando and Grogu.
That's, well, now that we're in 2025, that's next year, right? Or is that this year?
It's next year. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. 2026.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Ahsoka season 2, I think, is like 2027, which is like
40 years from
ridiculous,
now,
right?
whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, it like the pop of the crowd, like Chewie We're Home was a moment, right? At Celebration in 2015. Like, I think you could hear it from outer space when that happened. It was great. But I think that for Mando and Grogu, if Hondo showed up, same thing. You'd get the reaction of a Star Wars Celebration audience to Hondo showing up in a Mando and Grogu trailer, I think it would be exactly the same as Han and Chewie showing up in The Force Awakens, right? Like everybody would just lose their minds. They just be like, "This is the greatest," because people love Hondo. There would also be a lot of question marks. Like there'd be a lot of people like, "Huh? What? Why are all of these people?" But the thing is that like it would be drowned out by the people who do know who Hondo is and the loudness that would generate, right? Like it would be unbelievable because the people who do know Hondo would be like, this is the best thing ever to happen in Star Wars. And like disproportionate and completely irrational, right? Like I'm not saying that Hondo is the best character in Star Wars. I'm just saying that like if he shows up in Mando, the people who want him to show up in Mando are going to explode. Like they'll be picking pieces of brain off of the walls of whatever convention center they're doing this at in Japan, right? Like it'll be like a scene from The Boys. Like it's gonna be ridiculous because people are gonna be so excited. So I don't know, maybe that's just me, maybe my expectations of how people feel about Hondo, but I think you would also get a bunch of people who've like been to Galaxy's Edge who would be like, oh, that's the dude from Galaxy's Edge. Like they would also be familiar with the character and not understand necessarily where he came from, but know that like, I know that dude. I've talked to that dude, or at least he talked to me.
He stole from me.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I think that's it. Let's go out on that high note of everybody loving Hondo and Hondo being the most important character. He's like the linchpin in the Disney era of Star Wars. Everything comes back to Hondo. He's like the Coulson of early MCU, right? Yeah. Like getting the Avengers together. Actually, that's been Carson Teva. Which true. I was really hoping we were going to get a cut to the inside of one of those X-Wings and it was going to be Carson, but no such luck. But yeah. He'll show up in the last episode. He'll show up in the final episode of this season and be like, with a squadron of X-Wings and be like, we came as fast as we could. It'll be good stuff. Awesome. That's it for this week. We'll be back next week to talk about the penultimate episode. Right before I close this out, we just got to say it. Thank you, Bryce Dallas Howard, for once again giving us one of the best episodes of Star Wars TV. I don't understand how they haven't given you your own movie yet, but it'll come eventually. And when it does, it'll be the best. That's it. That's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week. Follow Force Perspectives on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ForcePOV. And join us on Discord at ThunderQuack.com/Discord. Support the show by visiting us at patreon.com/ThunderQuack to get early access to episodes, leave a rating and review on your favorite podcast service, or buy merch at store.thunderquack.com. Force Perspectives is a part of the ThunderQuack Podcast Network.